Hey, thanks for listening to this Trainer Spotlight episode on Fitlete Radio. My name is George Pagan III. Let's meet our coach.
Hi, my name is Julia Steier, and I am a group fitness nomad. I am a remarried military spouse, so I travel a lot. I do not do online coaching, but I do offer online coaching tips for free through my Instagram account, which is Julia Steier _. And I tend to specialize in spin classes and prenatal and postpartum fitness.
I know you're an awesome instructor and take your job seriously, but could you tell us an interesting story about your life that happened outside of work?
This is more so of a devastating story. So my husband passed away from cancer, and nothing really prepares you for the loss of a spouse. And I needed to get my mind right. At the time, I was coaching college across, and I needed to make sure that I was as sharp as I could be for season and being the best version of myself, all things considered, for my team at the time. And so I decided to seek help from a grief counselor. I went to the grief counselor, wonderful woman. She was very empathetic, and she heard me. I introduced myself. I said, hi, I'm Julia, and my husband died, and I just need to find a way to kind of get through this difficult time. And she was like, I got you. And she gave me like these things like gratitudes, writing a journal, a grief journal, yada, yada. And so I was like, this is great. So I went back the following week, and she said, Judy, it is so good to see you. How are you dealing with the death of your parents? And I was just shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, like, you don't even know who I am. But you want to know something, George? I decided to just go with it. And so I went back the following week, same question, Judy, how are you doing with the death of your parents? Following week, I went and saw her for almost 2 months. And it was always the same thing, Judy, how are you dealing with the death of your parents? And meanwhile, I would go to these sessions, talk about it, get in my car afterwards, and I would call my parents and tell them, she thinks you guys are dead again. And they thought it was the funniest thing. I would go into work, I would tell my work colleagues about it, and it became like a whole thing of, when will my grief counselor figure out that I am not Judy? Well, it took her trying to come to my house that I had to cut it off. Yeah, so that's that.
We can't train everyone exactly the same. Our clients come to us having different life experiences and sometimes force us to think outside the box when it comes to their training. As a coach, how do you problem solve with your clients who come to you with some common aches, pains, injuries, some physical limitations, or previous traumas so they can still get the results that they want and the ones that they came to you for?
With group fitness, I get all different walks of life that come through the doors. And I do rely heavily on my background of, coaching college across, and also I have my NASM personal training certification. And so I do feel that whenever I have someone who has, an injury, or they're coming back from, having a baby, or coming back from a C-section, they haven't worked out in 9 years because they've been focused on raising their children, and now all of them are in school and they have time to kind of work on their own health goals. I do try to meet them where they're at. And this comes with offering modifications whenever available, or just letting them know that, whatever their body feels, do what feels good to them. And I got to tell you, George, it came with a little bit of a humbling experience. When I first started teaching group fitness classes, I was teaching cycling classes at a studio. And I had this one woman who always came. She sat in the front row, and she never followed what I was cueing and coaching. And one time after class, I was like, hey, why, when we're standing up, why aren't you standing up? When we're sprinting, why aren't you sprinting? And she just looked at me and she goes, Julia, this chemo is kicking my ass. And I just am trying to, do the best that I can. And as long as I'm showing up and pedaling, I'm doing something right. And that was a very, very humbling experience, because I quickly learned that not everybody can do what is asked of them, but the most important thing is showing up. And I love group fitness simply because there's a schedule, and I have a job, and my job is to make sure that the class is intoxicating, it's fun, it's uplifting, and people leave there feeling that they're better than when they walked in. And as long as the people continue to show up, build it into their routine, that is winning right there. That is a victory. And I try to really stress that whenever I can, especially when I go to new studios, because I did say I'm a group fitness nomad. So that's just something that I hold dearly, is that I create an environment that people want to be at and they want to continue to show up regardless of what's going on in their life. And hopefully I can meet them where they're at as well.
Just like we are, most of our clients are spending time on social media and can get information from other people in their family and social circles. When questions come up during coaching calls and training sessions, how do you address some of the common misconceptions around nutrition and exercise with these clients?
Wow, what a loaded question. If you asked me before I had kids, I would probably talk a little bit more about macros and the importance of following a macro plan, and you can swap in and out ingredients to make it fit for your macros. But now that I'm almost 40 and I'm a mommy, a mamacita with 2 young kids, that's not the route that I would take with some of my postpartum and even prenatal uh, clients, because I do get a lot of questions here and there about diet plans and nutrition. I'm going to give you an example from my last job. I had a girl who was looking to lose weight, and she had tried a couple fad diets. I think she tried keto at one point, but the most recent one she decided to try was high protein, high fiber diet. And I was really surprised when she told me that. And I was just like, oh, are you like meal prepping? And she said, no, she wasn't meal prepping, but that was what she was going to go forth and do. And by the way, I don't blame anybody for not meal prepping. Like, when people tell me they meal prep, all I hear is you're eating leftovers. So like, I understand why people are like into meal prepping and might not be. Anyways, back to the point. She was telling me she's doing this high protein, high fiber diet. And I was like, all right, I think that's going to be pretty hard to sustain. Have you considered maybe just like tracking your calories for a week, and then the following week you see what your median calories are, and then you just lower it per day by maybe 200 or 250, and then kind of see how that will change your weight, or if there's any change at all. And she was like, no, I'm going to do this. And then I remember about 2 weeks afterwards, I asked her how the diet's going, and she said that it was very, very difficult to follow. And I again kind of offered my insight of, instead of doing something so extreme and so restrictive, maybe consider doing more of a calorie thing, because ultimately it comes down to calories in versus calories out for dieting and losing weight. But there's also a crosshair to this. So people can become very obsessed with calorie counting too. And I've noticed with a different person, they became very obsessed with the calories and the macros and just food in general. And that's when I think it's very responsible of a fit pro to suggest to a client at that point that they should seek professional help with a therapist or with a dietitian, because ultimately someone's well-being and their lifestyle is the most important thing. And I do feel that there's this belief through social media that it can be achieved by everyone just by themselves, and I don't think that's true. You need to use the resources that are around you.
Our clients can come to us for many reasons, and often they tell us in their consultations or new lead questionnaire that they have multiple goals, or they're trying to work on a couple of things. Usually it's not just one sole specific thing. How do you approach goal setting with these clients who have multiple objectives when you ask them about what their goals are?
Well, luckily, I don't do personal training, so I don't really have a lead questionnaire that I have to do. And there's not really too much consultation that goes on when you have people dropping in for group fitness classes. However, that does not mean I ignore people's goals. And typically, depending on who walks through those doors, you might have someone who is doing cross training because they are trying to get ready for an Ironman. Um, or you have someone who needs to come to class 3 times a week because they are trying to lose weight. I try to offer a class that can be enhanced or digress depending on what people want to accomplish. And one thing that I like to do is celebrate big for the people who come in. And I've had riders and clients who have felt very stuck in where they're at. They just don't want to move outside that comfort zone. And the moment they pick up a heavier weight, oh my goodness, that just like pumps me up, and they just need to be celebrated so big. And the hope is that when they're getting celebrated, there might be someone else in the room who sees that and goes, if they can do it, I can do it. Because I cannot tell you, having community really can offer people to continue to elevate their own bodies and their own experiences and achieve what they didn't think is possible. And I feel that's so important, especially in the group fitness setting. Um, so, you just get all different kinds of people. You get people who are a couple months postpartum and just showing up is a victory. You get your CrossFit zaddies who suddenly think that this will be easy because they can, clean and jerk 185 pounds 12 times, and then suddenly they're getting humbled because they aren't finishing first in a race in a cycle bar class. There's all sorts of things that people can use to measure their victories. And, I just try to kind of lean into what I have available and offer a safe space for everyone.
I believe all coaches should have similar baseline knowledge before starting to work with people. And I'm building Fitlete to help bridge some of these gaps that exist in our exposure to education. What experiences or qualifications do you think are crucial for coaches to have in order to deliver the best service they can for their clients?
I'm going to circle back to my funny story, the opening story about my grief counselor. I didn't go too much into detail, but I did remind her in our opening few sessions that it was actually my husband who passed away and not my parents. But over time, I kept going back, and she kept forgetting that it was my husband who died, but she insisted that it was my parents. And so, I thought it was silly, so I kept going back to her. And in actuality, looking back at it, when I retell the story, it was a disservice to me and in my journey. And I do believe that with coaches and with fit pros, that it is imperative that you find a coach who is empathetic and willing to connect, and also really learn about a person, what motivates them, what gets them going, what has them returning, what inspires them, because that can be the difference between an okay coach and a great coach. And it's very important that, of course, they have the knowledge, but at the end of the day, you can have the X's and O's. You can rip off what body parts do what, and what connects to what, the kinetic change, thermodynamics of calories in, calories out. But if you lack the personal touch, that is going to hurt a coach in the long run. And I do feel that whenever someone is seeking out, a coach, a personal trainer, group fitness, just a community and environment, you have to look at the community and environment that coach has built around them. Because you will find that there are a lot of coaches who go through clients like a soda can. They come, recycle, next one, come, recycle, next one. But when you find a coach who has really, really built a strong connection and community around them, that's a very special person. Not only do they know what they're doing, but they walk the walk, they talk the talk, and they also meet people where they're at, and they help build people up. And they build people up, and those people are there to basically be even greater than any social media profile could be, or any business card or any resume. It's proof that what they do works, and proof that what they're doing has people returning to them.
Our industry is evolving every step of the way, and we're getting to the point where it's essential to have some sort of technology within your business for both the experiences you can deliver for your clients and your ability to grow sustainably. How do you use technology to assist you in your coaching as a coach and behind the scenes as a coach that nobody really sees?
I just need a good microphone and a good sound system as far as technology goes, because that can make or break a class. Um, but as far as like the new technology, I am aware that there are, new shiny gadgets coming out of technology that can really help, elevate a studio or a gym. But those just aren't really for me. I have worked at a business for the last several years, and they have an app that tracks class to class metrics. That's about the extent of it. But I do know that if someone wants to go a little bit further, there are outlets that they can find, like an in body uh, test that they can do to see how much fat percentage they are, how much lean muscle mass they have. But as far as my personal coaching business and my ability to deliver classes, that stuff does not make a difference.
Julia, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of this great info about yourself, your life, and your experience coaching people. I connected with Julia through Instagram after I was looking for some new coaches to meet, and someone shared her profile in a story, I believe, and that's how I was introduced to her. She has always spoke with some really good transparency. Didn't always show the highlights, which I thought was really refreshing at the time. A lot of people were just showing, only the bright spaces in their life. And she'd always talked about how she was able to connect with people she's working with, find support, and help others through exercise. And I'm glad you got to know Julia a little bit more through this episode. Check the show notes to see how to connect with her best. That's all for this episode. If you want to learn more about Fitlete and our resource nexus for coaches and personal trainers, visit fitlete.com. That's FITLETE.com. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.